Thank you very much. Uh, Good afternoon, everyone. I believe the contemporary I belong to, I'm talking about the Gen Z. I think we are the last set of people to enjoy Tales by Moonlight for what it was back then, not what it is like today. I doubt if we still do Tales by Moonlight, actually. And so for me, whenever I hear the word storyteller or storytelling, three images comes to mind. Three people. My grandmother, who I stayed with in Ekiti, Mama Ado, Baba Kaduna, and my big cousin, Radako. And if you called me naive or you call me dumb, I will not disagree, actually. You can ask me why. Ask me why now. Thank you very much. Because Tales by Moonlight was the only thing I knew as story. So for me, film was film, novel was novel. Even the comprehension passages we read in our English textbooks, I did not realize that the content and the context of all these things, they are stories. So, Test by Moonlight was just the only thing I knew as story. And then all these things that I mentioned started becoming this fragment of idea of who I thought I wanted to become. And it was so hard for me because there was nobody in my immediate environment that was really doing anything that I could hold on to get. So, but guess what? Something happened, but I'll just save that for later. So, my topic today is telling our stories, telling your story. And to be very honest with you, it is as straightforward as that. I'm giving it to you literally. Tell your story, tell stories. But why is telling our stories important? Why is telling story? Why is it important? Why do we need to tell our stories? Let me start by telling you my own story. I lost my dad when I was 7 years old. And before that time, I we didn't have much time to spend together because it was always, on the road or in the air. And few months before his death or before his passing away, he had a bucket list of things to do before he kicked the bucket eventually. He had a bucket list of things to do. And one of the things was to take myself and my brother to our hometown, Ogunwosho, so we could like, be closer to our roots and heritage for a while. And but on the road, I remember that very fateful day, they started complaining about this uncomfortability. So they took him to the hospital and he spent 3 weeks there until the news about his demise came in. And that was it. So due to that, I stayed with different people at different points in my life. I stayed with my grandmother, I stayed with my uncle, you know. And all these people, they kept telling me about my dad, kept telling me stories about my dad. And it could be tiring actually, as at then, you know. And especially my uncle, because if he was going to scold me, he would tell me a story about my dad. If he was going to encourage me, he would tell me a story about my dad. If he was going to motivate me, he would tell me stories about my dad. And but then, I was too young and all those things was just can I just leave this place? So then as time goes on, I realized that what my uncle was actually doing was using story as a tool for instruction. And for me, that is functionality, which I can say is one of the core components of my approach to storytelling. It has to be functional. Anything I want to say, anything I want to create, it has to be functional. So realizing that functionality, and you agree with me that we've normalized our activities, we've normalized our life so much that we don't even realize the fact that stories is how we make sense of life. I mean, if you check the religion, if you check the Bible, everything in the Bible are accounts. They are stories. If you check the Quran, everything stories. Even if you check Ifa verses, everything they are stories. Even your CV is a story. Even the content we consume on social media, they are all stories. So like story is just how we make sense of our life. I mean, even this ongoing life that we are all in, that we are all participating in, we are all characters in this story. So let me continue my story. Thank you. So whenever my uncle, sorry, whenever my uncle was telling me stories about my dad, as much as I didn't like it, I'm always forced to imagine. Again, I'm always forced to imagine, you know, what it would look like what he was saying, to the very extent that even when I'm not with my uncle, when I'm going to make certain decisions, even up to now, I like to invent in my head that this is what my dad would have said, some advices, and sometimes I do follow it. And for me, that emphasizes the power of imagination. So I love to assume that there is a kind of sacredness that needs to be respected when it comes to imagination. And you also agree with me that as much as we can't really explain the science behind it, it is actually the bridge that connects reality to what is not or what come. So, or what is yet to come. So, and my teacher, well, one of my teachers in school back then, Professor Ujura Zaki Bakari, who is the Minister for Art and Culture in this state, Ekiti State, he used to say that you can't create beyond your exposure. And on the literal surface, that means you can't create beyond what you have seen or what you have heard. And to be very honest with you, what we see or what we hear is, I mean, there are things that humans can't always control. Because you can be walking on the street and then you're hearing some Fuji music, and unconsciously, you didn't wish to listen to that or you didn't wish to hear that. But then you heard it and your brain has already, captured that. And before you know it, it becomes a data that your brain later use as as information of whatever you want to create or whatever you want to do. So sometimes I used to tell storytellers, I used to tell artists that you need to curate the things you see. You need to try as much as possible to curate what you see and what you hear. Let me continue my story. So I gained admission to study theater and media arts in Federal University Oye-Ekiti. And that was a space where, I told you that I didn't really have people in my environment to, know, encourage me when I was young. But it's so ironic that it was still in this Ekiti state, that's Federal University of Ekiti, that I started becoming. Let me use that word. I started becoming. I met people who were equally passionate about storytelling, who were equally passionate about the things I was passionate about. And then we just created this community, sort of. It even have to do, it doesn't have anything to do with our class works and all that. We're just there, inventing, creating stories, you know, making films with our iPhones, our phones, and all that, editing on phones. And we're submitting these things throughout festivals that we spend almost all time, researching and all that. And for us, that unlocked the possibility, kind of, that you can literally tell your story wherever you are, and the world will listen. So, why do we tell our story? The functionality. What do you need from yourself to tell your story? Or what do you need from yourself to tell stories. Your imagination, your curiosity, and the sacredness attached to that. And what are the external things you need? Infrastructure. And you have one of the most beautiful infrastructure you can ever have. I am giving you that for free. And that's Ekiti State. You are in this space, you are here. And then, what other thing do you need? Community. So, ladies and gentlemen, functionality, curiosity, imagination, sacredness, infrastructure, and community. Thank you very much.